Welcome to Arcade Attack. A retro gaming podcast for up to 4 players.
Sonic Boom!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, as usual. It's James with another Arcade Attack podcast, and I am, of course, joined by the absolute creme de la creme of retro gaming podcast teams. If that creme had been left out for a few days and it started to turn a little bit
sour.
I didn't say sour. You said that, not me.
I'd say harsh but fair.
Fair enough. But firm but fair. We're playing by the rules here. So I have with me, of course, the Dillmeister Dylan.
Hello, mate. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. I've got Keithmeister Keith.
Hello.
And I've got our resident podcast hijacker and part of the furniture, Adrian.
Oh, yeah, I'm drinking at the moment out of a brain teaser mug.
What have you got?
Brain teaser mug.
Dylan made me a very nice cup of coffee.
He did.
And
Is it nice?
Well, I think the mug makes it better. But what a mug.
That's a posh coffee bag.
And what mug have you got, Adrian?
It's brain teaser. One word, brain teaser.
Brain teaser.
It's a Channel 5 quiz show mug.
Yep.
And I believe one of the people on this table, two of our podcasting crew, has been on this said show.
And we've tried looking it up on
it's
YouTube.
me.
We can't find it.
Yes. I was on a Channel 5 quiz show in 2003. We were all dying. It was like one of the hottest days of the year. We're all dying. They put on a fan in between takes. I'm sweating my arse off. It's brilliant.
On national television.
On national television.
Sorry about the detour.
We need to find it. Like I said, resident podcast hijacker.
I got to the end and I couldn't get the word detour and I lost 500 quid. Is that what you wanted? Is that what you wanted from me?
That's what I want, yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Did you actually win anything at all?
I want that mug.
Oh, okay. So did you win anything?
And I won the mug. I was very depressed. I was very depressed afterwards. Wandered around Oxford and spunk 10 quid on a Orange Rangers shirt.
Interesting.
Do you remember me wearing that at footy back in the
Orange
day?
Rangers shirt.
I was really short on football. I don't
Vaguely.
I mean, I'll say this now. I have no preference. Rangers over
No
Celtic.
old firm preference.
No old firm preferences. But it was £10 for a football shirt. I was like,
Bargain.
that is a ghastly, ghastly shirt. Rangers fans know that shirt. It's a bad shirt. I have it somewhere. £10.
I literally can't tell you. If I'd briefed you beforehand and said, guys, can you start talking about something that has literally nothing to do with the actual podcast? That would have been it. Yeah, £10 orange football shirts.
We'd just like to elongate your podcast even more. Mate.
I don't think you need to do that. That's fine. But how are we all? Anything cool happening? Any news? Any nuggets of wisdom? Anything? Or is it kind of just enjoying the coffee too much?
Is that coffee? Does that coffee make up for last time when Dylan offered you some like World War II coffee? and milk at a time.
Coffee rations.
This is so funny. I was so hungover that day, and I was like,
no excuse.
I'm like trying to put something together,
Trying to be a host.
and I've had I thought this coffee will be fine. I hadn't had a coffee for a while. Got out my Nescafe Gold Blend, and it had hair on it. It had grown hair. It was so old and so decomposed.
And then
it
you-
grown
It's like,
hair.
you know in The Simpsons where they open the World War II beans and all these souls of dead soldiers goes, woo! That's what this coffee
And
is
then you
like.
open the fridge and you said to Adrian, would you like a slice of milk?
Well, I thought I could resurrect the situation. So I found because when I go to hotels, I tea leaf all the free coffee and tea and stuff. So I had a good sash, a 2 sash of coffee because Adrian likes it strong. So I put that in there. That's looking pretty good, smelling pretty great. I was like, oh, this milk is probably. Ted drank that yesterday. My little boy drank that yesterday. I'm pretty sure it's fine. Literally, we got it the day after it turned. So when it went flopping in there, I'm like, mate, I can't do you a coffee. I can't do you a coffee.
So the question that's all really burning away at us now, is that coffee today that you've got actually
Is that
any good?
made up
Or
for
is
it?
it?
Here we go. Taste test.
This is what people
It's
listen
good
to us
coffee,
for.
yeah.
There you go.
That is a Taylor's coffee bag with fresh milk in it.
Coffee bag, no less.
With fresh milk.
Fresh, no less.
no
fresh
no
milk.
chunks.
No slices needed.
I don't drink coffee much, so I figured the coffee bag idea was quite a good one. In fact, it's actually quite a good idea.
Why has
in
nobody
general.
come up with that before?
That's what they say on the
stupid.
TV advert. That's what they say.
It's a good advert. Is it really? It's a good advert, actually.
Why has no one done it before?
Coffee bag.
Just a coffee bag.
Tea bag.
A coffee bag with just the right amount of coffee in it. And you put it in the thing, put the boiling water, put some milk. It's delicious. There you go. Anyway, enjoy, mate.
I honestly haven't told any of them to do any of this. This is just, this is just.
We like
spiel.
hijacking your pods.
Yeah, don't you just? Yeah, spearheaded by you normally.
So this is a podcast about coffee and obscure Channel 5 quiz shows.
Orange Rangers shirts.
Yeah.
Losing 500 quid on quiz shows. Mugs. Yeah. If anyone wants to buy the brain teaser, no, I'm sure they won't.
Oh, if
Anyway.
they want to give me 500 quid for it, then yeah.
They'll make up
please,
for it. Yeah.
Please let me know.
And an Orange Rangers shirt. Have you still got it?
I'm pretty sure I got it somewhere.
Anyway, we've got to move on, unfortunately. I know we can talk about coffee all day.
Sorry, mate.
That's all right. That's okay. I'll allow it. Get it in the bin. Get you in the bin. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Today's pod. So I've got something. It's a little bit off the beaten rails for us. Yeah.
Oh no, we like to stick to gaming. 100%.
I know. Well, it is, but with a little bit of a twist. So it's well within retro gaming territory. Yeah, there's a lot of love for this out there because every time I post on the socials something about what I'm sort of going to tell you in a minute, always a lot of love. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's also something which I think Dill and Keith. Not much knowledge on, which is quite good for me because I'm normally the one learning.
Yep.
So
no knowledge.
That's good.
Well, barely a bit.
So a smidgen,
Yeah.
Which is good because I like that. I'm kind of feel a bit more kind of on a level playing field. I'm not sure about age. I know there's a story. I've no doubt going to come out the woodwork at some point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know you got a little bit.
I've played it and I've got a story about it. Don't you worry about that, my friend.
So I know
what is it?
What is it? I'll tell you in just a second. Because I was going to say, I know Adrian's itching to tell his story, but the subject today involves a certain outspoken mega tycoon, Lord AlanSugar. Yes, everyone knows Alan.
Yeah, we're rolling our eyes.
From where?
What a twat. I don't know.
Dylan's not going to hold back on this one.
No,
He's a bit of an acquired taste, let's be honest.
I actually thought the first few series, especially the first series of The Apprentice, was actually really interesting. Good business documentary, a bit of a little bit silly, but actually had a good sort of business heart to it. And it's quite entertaining, but it's just turned into something that isn't really what it's supposed to be. It's like another reality TV show where people go on there to become famous, not to sort of pitch a good business side. I'm sure there's a few exceptions. I'm happy to hear that, but it's really sort of morphed into a show it shouldn't be. It used to be relatively respected, I believe. I remember the first series was very, very good.
Well, I've got some really good news for you. We're not going to be talking about The Apprentice.
Can I talk about The Apprentice for a minute, though?
Right, do you remember how at the start, I said Adrian was a resident podcast hijacker?
I do have a story, though.
Right, go on, go for it.
Do you remember there was an apprentice called Philip Taylor, I think it was? He made Pants Man. Do you ever see that episode? It's
don't remember that
quite
one.
early on. Yeah, his name was Philip Taylor, and he didn't win The Apprentice, but he made this sort of serial mascot called Pants Man, and it was quite well respected. Well, it's quite funny, and everyone sort of took the mick out of him. But I've met the guy because in my old school, I'm not going to name my old school, we had like an enterprise day, and students in year 10 were off timetable, and they would basically do like a Dragon's Den or like an apprentice task. They had to come up with a new product, a business plan, a marketing plan, sort of create a prototype out of it, using paper and stuff like that.
Sounds good.
And present it. Really good day. And it finished with a guest presenter, a guest businessman or woman to come in and judge the best sort of business ideas. And we managed, it cost us money, the school money, but we snagged Philip Taylor of apprenticeship fame to come in. And he spoke as well. He also spoke about his life and what he's doing now. You know what? On the show, he came across a bit of an arse. Sorry, offends Dylan. He doesn't like to have a go at people. But actually, I'll give him credit. He was very well spoken. He had a lot of time to talk to the kids, and I can't remember what the idea he chose at the end, but he'd done a really good job of getting the kids engaged, and he was a very good speaker actually. So Philip Taylor, thank you very much. I thought he was a cool guy, and maybe
what's he doing charging schools for though, Phil?
Come
Seriously.
on,
charity.
Do you know
If you're
what?
out there, give us a
donate,
shout.
donate it to charity, please.
No, but
Otherwise you can get in the bin.
Even people like Levi Roots, who I really respect as an entrepreneur, charges schools to come in and talk. I mean, they shouldn't. Personally, I think that's a bit grotty. But here's another story. Then the following year, we thought, well, we're not going to get Philip Taylor again. He's a little bit, it's been a few years since being on TV. We'll get like a more recent Apprentice star. She was about to come in, not going to name the name. I can't remember the name now, to be fair. And then on the day, she rang in. She had food poisoning.
Oh yeah, that old chestnut.
So obviously, she reimbursed the money to the school. But come on, man.
Oh, chestnut.
Come on, who was it?
No, I can't remember her name, but it was an Apprentice star.
You're
But
so
there you go.
insignificant, mate.
We don't even know you.
That is a true story.
So Philip Taylor.
Yeah.
Phil.
Pantsman himself.
Phil the
Phil
Power
the
Taylor.
Pantsman. Phil the
Phil the Power
Pantsman
Taylor. Phil the Power Pantsman Taylor.
Oh, well, if he's listening, give us a shout and tell Adrian, I'll have a chat with
I
Adrian.
actually think he
But
started to sell underwear. I'm not even joking. He actually started to sell underwear made through organic ingredients.
I never would have guessed with a name like Pantsman.
Yeah.
Right, stop charging schools, you swindlers.
That was, how long ago was that?
If you can give it your free time, give it your free
about
time.
10
Don't
years
go
ago.
charging.
Talk about holding grudges. Jesus Christ.
Don't go charging.
What was that? 30 years ago?
No, it's about 10, probably about 10 years ago. now.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I thought you meant when you were at school.
Kids
yeah.
need our help,
when I
for
was a
heaven's
teacher.
sake. Stop charging the school.
Put him in the bin, Dale.
Anyway.
They've gone in the bin.
He's in the
Do
bin.
you know what? I'm going to be
Taylor's
using
in
the word
bin.
anyway quite a lot during this. Because move you lot on.
We're about
yeah?
10 minutes in and he still hasn't named the thing that we're
No, I
talking
haven't. And Keith, I could tell Keith's getting really itching to know what it is.
What
So it's
is
not
it?
The Apprentice. It's not Philip Taylor. It's not about charging schools money to come and speak. It's not about getting in the bin. It is about a little company called Amstrad.
They're nothing, mate. Just kidding.
And more specifically, they were something.
I know.
More specifically, I'm going to talk about something quite niche, but it sort of opens up into something quite big. One of its very, very successful home computers, the good old CPC 464. Yeah. Now, I know there's going to be some people listening to this who are going to want to hear about this, and they've got their own takes on it, and they've had one, or they've bought one recently, or whatever. Because it kind of, when you look into it, you think, oh, it's just like one of the many home PCs that was available, etc., etc. But it did something quite special at the time, yeah? And the timing was good, and there's loads of stories about it. So I'm not going to go through everything because we'll be here forever, but I'm going to give you a bit of a background, and then we're going to talk about the games and kind of how it sort of cemented itself in our kind of crucible, as it were, yeah? Yes. So you might think that it maybe is a bit niche, but there's a lot of love out there for the Amstrad computers. Certainly as a gaming machine, at the very least. Yeah, if not, necessarily for all the other stuff that it did, word processing and whatnot. So I've got stacks of great memories with this one. I'll come on to a couple of those later. But every time I post something on the socials about Amstrad, or a bit of hardware associated with it, always gets a bit of interest, a bit of love, which is good. So I thought I'd pay homage, bit of homage, yeah. And we're gonna have a little look at Amstrad as a whole and give you guys a bit of context, yeah, because I know obviously just talking about the machine by itself probably doesn't make a lot of sense, etc., etc. So, chaps, any knowledge at all, Adrian? What's your level? Kind of if 10 is like grandmaster and 0 is never even heard of it, where do you sit on a kind
5?
Of, about a 5,
Because
okay.
I have played the machine. I have a story about playing the machine.
Excellent.
I've played a few of the games, and I've got some vague and distant but opinions and memories about it.
Wicked. So, I mean, I'm not going to say when to jump in because no doubt you'll ignore that and just do it anyway. So that's absolutely fine. And Dill, Keith, what numbers do you put yourself at?
I think I spent about 2 hours on it in Mitcham, and on a rainy day in Mitcham.
So you're sort of a
in the late
2-ish?
80s,
3-ish?
Nothing, mate. Oh, just nothing about it. But
Low numbers.
I
low
was just
numbers.
thinking that I think I was playing the green screen game. I think it was Batman or something. I don't know,
On the
just
green monitor,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, "Hoo, this looks amazing."
On the
like-
green monitor.
I was like, oh, and then that was it. Never saw the machine again.
And Keith, I don't think
I say like a 1,
a 1.
just because I've heard of it.
Okay, cool. That's fair.
And I
enough.
know what its main competitor was, and I know when it was, but that's about it.
But
Never
that's
played.
good.
Never played one. Never.
I like
touched
that
it.
eclectic mix, though. Yeah, because if we all knew everything about it, it'd be a bit pointless, really, wouldn't it? Yeah. So as usual, we've got to fire up the old time machine. Yeah, I know. We do that a few times. Ready? Hold on tight. Hold on to your drinks. And we've got to go back. So we've got. I was going to say we've got to set a date, but we've already gone.
No, we've already gone.
We're going to go back to the very beginning of Amstrad. Okay. What year? I'm going to test you now. What year did a 21-year-old Alan Sugar?
God.
1926.
No, not when he was born. When did he found? When did he
21
found
years old.
I'm going to say
Amstrad?
83.
Okay, so you think 83. Dill, give us a year.
During the war.
During the Great War.
the Great War.
The Boer War. Battle of Trafalgar.
Years War.
Agincourt. Yeah. No, go on.
80 sank.
Hey, 80
80
something. Give me a year. Just give me a year. 82. Yeah.
So when
Keith?
he was 21,
He was 21.
1972.
Okay, Keith's the closest.
Oh.
It's actually 1968.
No.
So what? Yeah, I know. And you're thinking, hang on a minute, Amstrad, what?
We were on the moon in 68. That's madness.
There you are. So it was in fact 1968, and the name, creatively enough or not, was made up of parts of Alan Michael Sugar Trading.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I always
I
wondered
bet
where
he thought he was so clever.
Oh, yeah.
it really isn't though. I always wondered where the trad came from, but that
Trading.
just makes perfect sense. So. I mean, it's here that you could go into some crazy detail about his wheeling and dealing, successes and failures, all that guff. But we'd be here till tomorrow afternoon. Genuinely, though,
He's got enough smoke up his
like,
trumpet.
No,
We
but
don't need to
love
give
or
him
hate the guy, there are some mad stories. Yeah, there's like with some of the deals he did with business, how he managed to get into catalogs. It's honestly, it is actually quite interesting, even if you don't, you're not a fan of the guy. It's worth having a read on. But in short, so,
No,
go on.
One business thing he did. I remember when he was at Tottenham. He was
Yeah.
like, we've signed enough foreign players. They haven't really worked out, and he had the chance to sign Dennis Bergkamp. So, but he said, no.
more than
We're not
foreigners.
getting Bergkamp. We'll get what was his name again? Another striker. They had
English.
Yeah, he was English. Yeah, he was quite good, but he never hit the heights.
What, in the mid-90s?
Yeah,
They did have Sir Les.
not Les
Sir
Ferdinand.
Les
It was someone
and
else.
Teddy.
Is it?
Teddy.
No, it's just.
They had Jurgen, but
And
was that
Jurgen.
after Jurgen?
But what I'm saying is they missed a
They
big
missed
player.
That's
I remember him saying that he wouldn't even wash his shirt with wash his car with Klinsmann's shirt or something.
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
that Klinsmann left or something.
So
Yeah, but then
I
you-
quite enjoyed how he almost destroyed Tottenham.
But then you got Bergkamp though, didn't you?
Exactly.
So, there you go.
That all worked out great.
The non-flying Dutchman.
The Flying Dutchman. Anyway, so between founding the company and releasing the first home computer, which actually was quite a gap. Yeah, you're talking 16 years there. So what the hell did he do for 16 years? Yeah, he actually sold hi-fi parts, amplifiers, and stereos. Believe it or not. Yeah, that's
Okay.
how he started out.
Out of his van.
to essentially whoever would buy them. Yeah, and let's face it, you can't really be picky when you're starting out. Money's money, right? Yeah. So the most kind of canny moment after sort of selling out the vans and markets and all that jazz came when he actually managed to convince the owner of Dixon's, Stanley Calms, okay, who ended up being a lord. I actually met Stanley Calms in my early retail days when I was at Dixon's. This guy was hard as nails. Proper old school, called a spade, didn't mind telling you to your face you're an idiot, and pretty harsh, but to be fair, you kind of knew where you stood. There wasn't any kind of room for wondering what else there was.
Sounds like the new Dylan on the podcast.
Get it in the bin.
You guys are harsh, man.
You did it to yourself. I'm afraid.
No, I'm a nice guy. I say nice things.
So he actually managed to get a meeting with Stanley Calms, which in itself, if anyone out there knows how tough the guy was, that was bloody hard. Yeah. And he managed to sit down with him, and he actually convinced him to stock one of his amplifiers, one of the Amstrad amplifiers. It was relatively cheap. They both knew that it wasn't the best, which was interesting. They didn't kind of let on though to each other, but it sold well. It actually sold pretty well. And it was actually well enough for them to do more business together, including stocking one of Amstrad's hi-fis. And this is an interesting thing. They stocked a hi-fi and it had all sorts of, different buttons and adjustments and all that jazz on it. And one of the earlier hi-fis actually had a button and it said sound quality improvement. Yeah. Right. Okay. Fine. What does that do? Years later, someone bought one and took it apart.
Tell me it wasn't connected
It
to
wasn't
anything.
connected to anything.
Amazing. That's amazing.
I just think that says it all, really, doesn't it? That says it all.
Can you imagine? No, I want poor
Listen to
sound
the
quality.
difference.
But do you know what? I bet people were going, listen to that. Get your friends around. Yes.
Do you know what? I literally got Spotify Premium properly recently, just because I haven't had it ever before. And apparently it doubles the quality. And I'm like, I can't hear much difference.
No, that's rubbish.
Well, we're going off the track again slightly, but there is a selector in the options menu where you can, if you're running it over Wi-Fi or phone signal, you can actually select the streaming quality.
Yeah.
True that.
I still think
But you're only playing
it sounds
for your...
like an Amstrad trick to me.
Yeah, but hold on. You're probably playing it for your phone speaker, right? Or
Yeah, I am.
something. That ain't going to do it. That ain't going to cut it.
Yeah.
So we're going to fast forward a bit because he's had years and years of making and selling these hi-fis, getting into all these funky positions. He's got contacts over in the Far East that are making things for himself, for Dixons, etc. And it's all going quite well. In 1980, Amstrad went public on the London Stock Exchange.
Oh, yeah.
They doubled in size every year. From there, yeah,
Doubled.
So we're now into the early 80s. Yeah, it's getting a bit more familiar now. We kind of understand what's around, what's coming out, and this is where we kind of really begin the journey. As you know, when they began to make their own range of home computers, it was a bit of a change of direction from hi-fis. I think you'll agree, because computers are very different animals. Yeah, you've got to satisfy an awful lot of tick boxes. Sound quality on a hi-fi, a few buttons make it look pretty. Happy days.
A few buttons that don't do anything. Who cares?
A couple of buttons that don't do anything. Yeah. So deciding to go into the home computer market was a bit of a gamble. Yeah, at the time, and there were actually dozens and dozens of companies in the UK. They were all scrambling to release computers. I didn't realise how many there were, but there's so many companies. With new models being dropped pretty much every month. So throughout those years, there was just so many. In hindsight, you'd be pretty hard pressed to actually remember any of the companies or models of those dozens, as they just disappeared into obscurity. I'll give you some names. I don't think anyone will know them, but I'm going to throw it out to the socials to see if anyone does. So there was names such as the Flan Enterprise.
The
Flan, as in like a soft sponge-based kind of cake.
Flan.
Flan. The Jupiter Ace. Nope.
Nice. I want one.
And the Dragon 32.
Oh, yeah. Dragon 32.
Heard of that.
Yeah. So we've only heard of Dragon 32. There were so many. There's literally a massive list, and you can go and look online, and there's sites that have listed them all. So you pretty much don't know most of them. There might be the odd glimmer in there, but if there's anybody out there who knows of them, might have one, might know someone who's got one or got a piece of it, let us know.
We need to speak to the Oliver twins.
Because that's awesome.
The Oliver twins who made Dizzy. Because I'm pretty sure, because I've got their book somewhere, I'm pretty sure they started coding on the Dragon 32. And
Awesome.
and they were just like magazines back in the day where they just print Dragon 32 programs, and you'd like type it in like, verbatim, obviously, into your Dragon 32, and like you'd have a game. That's pretty sweet, isn't it?
That's pretty sweet.
We need to hear from them. But anyone else who's got anything to do with any of those, get in touch, because that'd be amazing. So if we kind of set the scene, we know what he used to do, we know what he's going into, and this is kind of the big moment here. So there's a stack more to read on this about some of the crazy selling and takeovers and stuff like that. There's some really good stories in there, but I'll let everyone go away and have a look at that if they want to. But because we'd be here forever and a day if we talked about all that. So we now come to what was essentially Amstrad's greatest move, yeah, and one which would kind of cement them into the growing competitive markets of the early 80s, yeah, because it really was moving stupidly fast in terms of technology, gaming. As we all know, how many times have we mentioned, the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s going into gaming? It was just growing and growing and growing, yeah. It wasn't stopping, and people had an appetite for it, yeah. Everyone did. So I'm going to talk about the home computer market, as we've just said. 1984 was the release of Amstrad's first machine, and I've already told you what it is. You can remember the name? Adrian knows what it is.
CPC 464.
It is the CPC 464, okay? This was a massive move, and again, previously selling amps, cassette decks, parts to the masses, yeah? Was it any good? We want to know. There is the question.
Do you know the 464? It sounds like a Todd Bowley formation, doesn't it, for Chelsea? Do you get it?
Yes, he don't know what he's doing.
Because he apparently sold...
He don't know what he's doing.
Too cool. Why don't you play a 4-4-3 formation? Sorry.
Trust you to come back to sports again. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
So, was it any good? Did it win over consumers? Would it have a decent game library, software library? That's what we really want to know. Yeah, we want to know what the games are like. So we're gonna have a bit of a whistle stop look at this. Yeah. So 12th of April 1984. Yeah. First in the series of Amstrad home computers hit the shelves, and let's be honest, Amstrad had the wind in their sails. You know, off the back of them selling all the hi-fi and amplifier, kits and stuff. So their name was out there already. There were actually 2 iterations of the PC upon release. They were pretty good value for money. So one was £199, and that featured the all-in-one, very colourful keyboard.
Yeah, I remember the keyboard.
Yeah, which had. Do you want to tell us what the keyboard looked like for people that don't know?
There's lots of the green colours and weird
blue colours, and there's red keys.
It's quite funky looking.
It is. So there's like a red escape key, and then you had like a blue or green enter button, and then you had green shift keys, and then you had. It was actually quite a simple but effective layout. And yeah, it had some like different coloured buttons on it, which is
stripes
kind of
now, I imagine.
Yeah, and it had across the top CPC 464, and it had like the red, green, and blue colour on it.
That's the one, yeah.
It was pretty funky actually, to be fair, for a kind of what you consider to be an early PC base unit. But it had an all-in-one keyboard with a built-in cassette deck.
Pretty long thing, isn't it?
It was quite. Oh, it was chunky. It was chunky. And you could get it either with a green monitor. Okay, but there was also a model at $299, which gave you actually pretty much a luxury of a colour monitor.
Amazing.
Yeah, which, to be fair, at the time, a colour monitor in the early 80s was like, that was luxury. Yeah,
I remember, yeah.
And now this was the kicker. The outfit also had an option to attach a TV tuner deck, which you could connect via RF or a DIN 6, you know, the little pins, kind of a smiley face connector. That was a stroke of genius because you could actually tune and watch TV. It could be used as a television. Yeah. So this was huge because obviously you could play games, you could write letters, do your word processing. You could also watch TV after you finished gaming. I mean,
you got to get it.
I mean, like there's the kind of selling point right there. Yeah. The TV tuner deck was actually made popular because it sold massively in France. It was really popular in France. And I think slightly later on they decided to add it onto the UK one because I don't think they realised how popular it was. If someone out there knows a bit more about it than me, then you feel free to correct me on that. But I think that's how it happened. So, I mean, the funny thing is though, looking back now, if you look at the spec versus like today's machines, you just like, it seems completely laughable, obviously. Yeah. But at the time, it punched above its weight. Yeah. So what do we think? What kind of spec do we think it came with? Do we know how much memory did it come with?
It's K's, isn't it?
It's K's.
Is it 8-bit or much?
It is. Yeah, it is 8-bit.
8-bit, yeah.
It is 8-bit. But what? Give me a memory number. Have a stab in the dark.
Oh God.
I don't.
No idea.
52.
You're not far off.
Oh, really?
64.
64K.
64K of memory. And it had a Zilog Z80 4 megahertz processor.
Yeah, boy.
I think the Master System had a Zilog. I think it might have been that same one. I think it might have been the same one.
Zilog Z80 4 megahertz processor.
Oh.
And it had an operating system called AMS DOS.
Why not, mate?
I know, why not? I mean, we laugh at these numbers now, but again, at the time, this was a bit of a sleeper. Yeah, this was a bit of a sleeper. It came with something called Loco Soft for word processing, and for those who were really interested and fans of the actual unit itself, it could also run a CPM operating system, which was to do with running particular single programs efficiently. So, if you want to know more about that, please feel free to go and have a read. But this was the best part. For other software and consumable products for the machine, what did Alan Sugar do to ensure a supply of software made for the machine and support consumables, etc.?
Ooh.
Exclusive contracts.
Where did he source that from?
His good mate at Dixon's.
No, actually, he made his own company. And it was called Amsoft. Funnily enough. To provide everything.
Okay, now I'm getting tired of it.
Yeah, I know.
And that was the company that was the straw.
That was
his hardware company, Amhard.
But that's a whole different company. But
I thought Amsoft fared worse than Amhard.
Am Semi. Yeah. Anyway, so There were this is the bit where I need you to jump because I know you're going to know this bit. So when they released it, which two other extremely popular and successful home PCs was it going up against? Name. Okay, I'll let Adrian name one.
I know one, but
and I'll let Keith name another because Dylan's looking a bit blank over there.
No,
so
I'm on the tongue on the tip of my tongue, but you guys go.
Okay, go on. Adrian.
The ZX Spectrum.
Yep, ZX Spectrum. Ding.
Commodore 64.
Ding.
Hey.
Obviously, firmly seated in kind of gaming folklore. And there's not, there's always a post or a video or something doing the rounds that's about, one of those two. Yeah.
Well, the C64 is obviously the best one. So,
well, I don't know about that.
Is it though?
It's time we all moved on and start
I'm going to debate that with you.
I'm a bit of a Spectrum fan over here. Actually.
So yeah, ZX Spectrum C64.
Rubber keyboard, get in the
bin. So many saw the 464 as an underdog. Yeah, fair enough, rightly so. Yeah, trying to muscle their way into the market. But Sugar was determined to showcase that, in fact, it was more than kind of just the underdog and just a token gesture to the market. But to be fair, he was pretty happy to be underestimated, yeah, and rightly so. I mean, who wouldn't if you're going to put something like that into the market that you know is decent? So he had a few clever additions on there, some software releases, and actually decent sound and graphics for the time. Color monitor as well. There was a decent package there.
True that.
So it was ticking a lot of people's boxes, but they kind of still at the time didn't really know it because they were still obviously being hammered by adverts for the ZX and the C64. So. Now, the reason I kind of wanted to do this pod, I actually got one for my sixth birthday. Yeah, nice. I was pretty lucky, and I think my parents kind of decided that maybe it was time for a computer and doing some typing.
James can do his homework on here.
Yes, this is
Thanks for that
homework machine.
Thanks for that. I didn't have a clue what it was. I was 6. I didn't, I hadn't played any consoles. This was literally my introduction to kind of everything computing and gaming. Yeah,
nice.
So the 464 was my sort of christening, as it were, into the worlds of both. I was actually really, really lucky because they managed to snag the TV tuner as well.
Oh wow,
nice.
Sweet.
And I mean, if I tell you that over the next following 20 years from when I got it, that I ran that machine into the floor, I wouldn't be lying. Yeah, I literally ran it. If it was a car, it would have had 500,000 miles on the clock by the end of it. Yeah.
Do you still own this machine?
Sadly, I don't. I think I sold it in sort of 06, 07.
Well, yeah.
It wasn't working properly. It was. I used to hook it up to a VCR and a hi-fi as well, which you could because it had a load of different connections on it. And up until about 2006. We actually used to use the monitor and the TV tuner in my parents' dining room.
Oh, right.
And we used to sit there and have Sunday dinner every so often, and we used to tune it in and watch a bit of telly on it. Well,
I love that.
When analog channels were still around.
Yeah.
I'm using this thing, 20 plus years later after I've hammered it, and it's still going.
Yeah.
It's just, honestly, I mean, if that wasn't an advert for kind of, how reliable it was.
It'd be a bit late for, obviously, when they wanted to sell it. But, it'd be a good advert.
Yes, yeah, very much so. You can buy them now, and I'll come on to that. But there we go. So yeah, I mean, I remember being into WWF, watching all the pay-per-views on video, VHS. Yeah,
I thought you really liked the Worldwide Fun for Nature.
Worldwide Fun. Sore point. But yeah, I mean, I specifically remember watching those, and I used to run those tapes again and again and again. And that thing made it happen. And that was my TV, that was my PC, that was my game console. So that's why I've got such fond memories of it. Could you have done all that with a Speccy or a C64?
No, you couldn't.
Oh, we've got a new winner. Sorry, Spectrum.
So, but my favourite memory though, the 464, it was actually borrowing games from a guy across the road. There was a family that lived across the road, and he gave me a bit of
Wait, what's his name?
Anthony. Oh, funnily enough. And he gave me a bit of weird advice on how I could get stuff to load. I'll come on to that in a minute. But it was well known actually that several tapes that had the games on for the 464, they sometimes had issues loading. All right, I don't know if you know, Age, you know how they loaded? How you loaded a game?
That's foggy memories.
It was a chore.
If it's like
Is it the
Spectrum-
same as any other tape deck loader?
Yes, I think there were subtle differences, but generally speaking, most tape decks were about the
So you
same.
basically put it in, press play, and then cross your fingers.
Yeah, and
Come
it
back
would,
in half an hour, you might have a game load.
Yeah, maybe.
that was it. It was a bit of a gamble, but there were several tapes that actually had a bit of an issue. So they would go through all the screeching and like this. You get the loading, the title screen would come up, and you think, right, that's it, job done, it's loaded, and it just would stop. Yeah, and it would stop making noise, and you'd think, oh, for God. And after 20 minutes of loading, you just were like, I'm just going to give up on this. Yeah. So there were several games that kind of had this known issue. And as I say, you put the tape in, run the loading script, and you'd kind of just take your life in your hands, really, whether you'd get to play a game or not. So it made a hell of a lot of noise. It sounded like a 90s modem connecting to the internet. You remember those ones, yeah? But it would take a lot longer. So it'd throw up a title screen, and you were just kind of hoping for the best. I can only liken it, really, bringing it a bit more modern to sort of some of the younger listeners. PS2, scratched or dodgy discs. Put the disc in.
Oh, yeah.
What
Get the
happens?
red screen.
Screen.
You sit there sweating, thinking, is it going to load? Is it going? And then it goes, whoop, and you go, yeah. But that's kind of what, except PS2 didn't take anywhere near too long to load.
True.
So several of the titles used to go through that and not load. I had a stack of tapes at home, and I really wanted to play them, couldn't play them because they wouldn't load. So that was basically, they basically just sat there, and it was a bit of a problem for me because I was an impatient young lad. And I thought I'd kind of have to perform sorcery to get them to work. But this Anthony fella over the road who lent me a load of games, yeah, bless him. I actually mentioned it to him one day because I didn't think anyone could fix it. And I just said to him, look, I'm putting the tape in, I'm pressing play, I'm loading the thing, da-da-da-da. I told him it, and he went, okay, yeah. And I said, it's not loading. I said, title screen, but I can't play the game. Like, what's going on? I'm getting really frustrated. I didn't think he was going to tell me anything. And, and he basically, I almost gave up on it. And he gave me the simplest, most stupid bit of advice for a computer I can ever imagine in my lifetime. Have a stab in the dark. What do you think he told me to do to make the game load?
Maybe turn the cassette the other way, maybe.
Good call. Turn it round. Yeah.
Turn it off and on again.
Turn it off and on again. Good shout.
Blow the cart.
Blow the
tape.
Blow the thing.
Get all your spit on the tape.
Cleaner.
That's going to work.
Yeah. Clean the heads on
Was
the
it
thing.
just some random key on the keyboard that entered it?
I wish it was that,
Complicated.
Yeah, it wasn't, right?
Come on.
Change the volume. No word of a lie.
Change the volume.
On the side of the actual deck, right? On the side of the
I've never
base
heard that
unit.
before. That's a good one.
It is. I know. I thought I'd get you with this
the
one.
volume.
I've got them, ladies and gentlemen. I've got them. But on the side of the actual deck itself, right next to the tape deck, there was a couple of inserts, I think a headphone jack and a couple other bits and pieces. And there was like a mode switch. And there was a volume control, okay, for the built-in speaker. You could use the speaker in the TV tuner, but there was a built-in speaker on the actual tape deck, which determined the volume of the screeching, basically.
Wow.
Now, I obviously I had the volume just left at whatever.
That's weird that it's geared up to go that way round, isn't it?
How strange is that? And the guy, and he said to me, this Anthony, he said, when you put the tape in, he said, when you start loading it up, he said, just alter the volume. So if you've got it on like high volume, he said, bring it down to like halfway. Yeah? I said, okay, fair enough. So I brought it down to halfway. Guess what? Some of the tapes started working. Right?
So they've all got like an optimal volume for their screeching.
Oh my god!
I say not all. There was only
some of them,
out of maybe 30 games I had, there was probably 4 or 5 that wouldn't work. And obviously they were just sitting on my shelf, gathering dust. But yeah, and there was a couple. I think there was 1 or 2 that were really difficult to load. You had to find exactly the right. So you might have to load it a few times, but once you cracked it,
Interesting.
I mean, how It almost goes back to the button on the stereo that don't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it was
It's the volume button that does too much.
for some
Yeah.
for some crazy reason. Changing the volume while you were loading the cassette for the game
Weird.
actually made it load better.
Bizarre.
So for those games that were sitting on my shelf, I actually managed to play them, which is mental. Yeah, and I'll come on to a few.
Were these copied games? Or they actually were all
No. These were official titles. These were proper. Most probably from WH Smith.
I would have thrown them back in their face, W.H. Smith. Give my money back.
They were
Well,
quite,
give my
cheap, weren't
£5
they? They were quite cheap. These games.
They were,
on the
yeah.
Spectrum and the Amstrad. They're about. I think I want to say £2, £3, £4 maybe.
Something like that. Yeah,
They're
they
like-
varied, I think, but
Yeah.
they weren't expensive because of the format they were
I remember
on. Yeah.
W. Smith having all the Spectrum games up.
No, they looked like a little carousel.
Yeah,
You
I
had to turn the
remember.
Oh,
carousel
cassettes
down.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. But have you ever heard anything so ridiculous? I mean, honestly, I know we've all got the quirks. You've got the blow in the NES cartridges.
Yeah.
You've got the, all that. Yeah, I mean, turning the volume to load a bloody game. I mean, seriously. But what's your story there? You got your playing.
Oh yeah, because
your 464. That's my memory. What's yours?
Well, we had a Spectrum at home, obviously, so that was really cool. We had lots of games and so forth. And one day, this is Edgar Road. Picture the scene, Edgar Road, classic Edgar Road story.
The house, the legend.
I got a knock on the door. And guess who was there?
Alan Sugar.
It was my good friend David Kumar.
Oh, David Kumar.
Good guy, nice guy, really cool guy actually. Well, I think last time I mentioned him was on the GoldenEye pod. So we, big gamer as well. And he came round. He was like carrying this stuff. I was like, what is he carrying? And he, so look what I got, and he brought his Amstrad over.
Nice.
With I think with a monitor as well. We put it into the
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, he said, look, let's check this out. I've got a new console, and we connected it in the living room. And I think you're right. He had the screen. I remember it now. And it was like, whoa.
Was it the colour screen? Was it colour monitor?
I think it was colour. It was definitely colour. And we loaded it up, and I was like, whoa. This was just before we got the Amiga, so we kind of just burnt out all the Spectrum games, needed something new. And oh, man, I was quite impressed, I've never really heard of it before. And I was
This is the 90s.
no, it's be late 80s, I'd say.
Okay.
Late
Fair
80s,
play,
maybe
fair
88,
play.
89. I don't know. Just before we got the Amiga, I'd say. And there was 2 games playing on it. And actually, I mentioned one before a long time ago, Street Fighter. I played the first Street Fighter on the Amstrad.
Wow.
It's cool. It's a good...
That's right. It was, wasn't it?
And it was the first time I played a proper fighting game, like one-on-one. It was absolutely incredible game. Terrible, but incredible, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I still remember going, whoa. And who would know that would spawn into one of the biggest games of all time, Street Fighter 2. And the other game I remember playing, and I thought, well, this is actually probably better than Spectrum. I didn't want to say it. Turtles! They had Turtles!
Yeah.
My friend Dave had Turtles, and I remember going, this game is awesome! And we actually swapped, not straight away, maybe a few weeks later. He borrowed the Spectrum with loads of games, and I borrowed his Amstrad maybe for a weekend with these 2 or 3 games. But I didn't mind because I played a lot of Street Fighter, a lot of Turtles, and at the time Turtles was huge. It was an interesting thing, wasn't it?
I think it surprised a lot of people. I'll come on to a bit more detail on that, but I think it surprised a lot of people because I don't think anybody thought it was going to be worth anything. Like, what is this thing? Coming into the PC market from nowhere, total left field, and all of a sudden, like, there's loads of official games being released on it, and et cetera, et cetera. But that's a nice little segue. Thank you very much.
And they're
for your
I
story.
don't know where those games link, but they were I've had a lot of fun with those.
Well,
games.
we're gonna talk about games because we want to talk about games. Of course we do. Yeah. That for me, that was the best part of owning it. Of course it was. Yeah. Young lad, play games. Of course. Yeah. So what I want you to do, I want you to have a stab at a number. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the number I want you
3.
to have a go at. No.
All right.
Got to times it by lots.
Okay.
What I want you to do is have a go at a number of titles, official titles, that were released on the 464 through its lifespan.
Not a lot, because it had a smaller lifespan than the Spectrum. C64 would have sold a lot more as well. So it would. He say double 3 by a lot, but no, you'd have to double it by that much.
6.
Well, maybe a little.
Well, you
more
either
6.
double 3 or you don't.
I don't know, though. If you think about, like, we're going back into the era of, like, bedroom coding and stuff. And
Official titles.
Yeah, but still.
Go on. Give us a number.
I'm going to say.
Go on, you go first.
200 games were made for this particular machine.
200 for the 464. Any advance on 200?
Less, 100.
100. Any up or down on 100?
350.
Did you just Google it?
No, I'm looking at the footage of the Turtles
It's
game.
good. It's good. It's good.
You're actually nowhere even close. Not even close.
1 million?
Okay. Now you've just undermined the number. Yeah. Get out. So I mean,
Looks good.
Yeah, it does.
It does. It's
It
a
does,
great.
yeah.
I remember,
It's good.
man,
Yeah.
and you could beat each of the turtles, and I think there's certain.
see, this
skills.
is what Keith
That
is
does
doing
look good.
now.
I
Is
know, I
what
was
people did at the
surprised.
time.
Wow.
And that actually, I thought that's probably better than the Spectrum game, and I don't like saying that.
But graphically, like, comparing
Yeah.
that to some of the C64 games and stuff.
Oh,
Like,
I love it. I love his reaction.
wow.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do Street Fighter. Do Street Fighter.
Okay.
Keith's learning. I like this. I'm teaching Keith something. Yes. But so I went around
well,
lots
yeah,
of
how
different
many?
places. I went around a lot of places here, sources, trying to find actual numbers for this. And as we know, with things like releases or sales or whatever.
Yeah,
it
it's
can
not
all
always-
be a bit of a minefield. So I did find a couple of forums that that said the same thing, and they were pretty adamant that they'd got a good number. So as far as officially released titles went, it actually boasted a library of 1,776 titles.
No.
That is
I knew it
staggering.
would be a lot.
It is.
I thought
Yeah,
it
it
would
is.
be a
No,
lot.
that is.
That's
Look it up.
crazy.
Look it up. This doesn't actually include any third-party or independent titles, which drove the number a lot higher. But I can't give you this number because it just varies
mad.
wildly. Yeah, between sources. The total games library for the Amstrad Home PC series, so that's the 6128 and all the other iterations, etc., of the Amstrad Home PC series, comes in an impressive 3,805.
That is mad.
That's a lot of games, yeah. Now, although the Spectrum and the C64, they shared a lot of the titles because obviously ports. Officially, they're all cross-platform. All right, so the 464, to be fair, it gave its users a pretty comprehensive library to kind of collect and play. Yeah. Plus, it had a lot of it did have some titles for itself as well, and it also had some specifically coded titles for the platform. Yeah.
Look at that game, Street Fighter. Look at Ken.
Let's see.
Yeah, mate, that looks pretty.
It's not as impressive as the Turtles.
No,
game,
but
but still.
I actually agree. Turtles
original
blew my
Street
mind a
Fighter.
bit at the time.
Turtles is pretty damn
Are you going to
colourful.
name some of your favourite games?
Of course I am. That's what I'm coming on to now. Look at Mr. Segway over here. Yeah.
I'm eager.
So it's no secret, though, that to be fair, the 464, it always kind of played the wagon's third wheel, yeah, as we've already talked about, and why not, yeah, when it came to arcade ports and kind of hand-me-downs, yeah. To be fair, the worst one, I think, by far, that a lot of people name is Outrun. It was probably one of the worst ports you've ever seen in your life, and I think to the point
Back to YouTube.
someone actually, I think someone wrote that it was so bad that when you went under like one of the bridges, it looked like you were going backwards. it was that bad. And to be fair, if you look it up, there were some that were pretty car crash. Forgive the pun, but yeah. But the PC, the 464, it had a good enough kind of setup, good enough spec to go toe to toe with any other units at the time. So, you sort of think to yourself, was that just lazy coding? Was it just, it's just an Outrun game so people will play it anyway, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll talk about some really good 464 titles. Yeah, some you'll have
Street
heard of,
Fighter
some
and Turtles.
Street Fighter and Turtles. I would say Turtles. Keith's just done a quick show round of the.
You looked
the
really
gameplay.
impressive, yeah.
And it's pretty impressive considering that people would assume that PC wouldn't be able to punch out that kind of quality. Yeah, which is good. Underdog once again. So I've handpicked some classic titles. Okay, you'll know some of them. You might not know some of the others. Some people out there will love them. But some of them I can't believe actually run on the machine. What you got? What's Keith?
He's showing around Outrun.
It's like 2 frames per
Oh,
second.
crumbs.
It's horrendously bad. Yeah, it's horrendously bad. On the face of it, the stills don't look bad.
Oh no, still it looks fine,
was-
but the frame,
It was horrible. Almost, I think some people say it's just almost
it
unplayable.
looks pretty
so.
awful. Anyway,
So adventure games, we all love a good adventure game, especially classic PC. And I think this is the highest selling 464 game of all time. It's a game called The Guild of Thieves. And it's actually a bit later on. It was 1987. And it was essentially a really detailed, immersive, kind of challenging story, text based. So you had a still, essentially a picture of like a room or a location or something, and then you had the text underneath it, which told you what was in the room, where you could go, and you had
Go to door. Find
exactly,
key.
and yeah, that's it.
Flip bed. I don't know.
Yep, things like that.
Yeah.
But you a lot of people that reviewed it have always said that it's the detail and the attention to the kind of shape of the story that nothing is kind of obscure. It all makes sense. It's very well laid out. There's a lot of thought.
I like it when adventure games make sense. You know what I mean?
because there are some that don't. Yeah,
There's plenty that don't make any sense.
but it was a text-based game with the graphic stills of the situation or location you're in. And if you look at Guild of Thieves CPC 464, there's nothing but love for it online as well. And I think Retro Gamer have done quite an extensive review on it, if I remember correctly. And
and that was the biggest selling.
I believe that was the biggest, again, sources and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I think the general opinion, I think that's the biggest
Wow.
selling / most popular game for the 464.
Wow.
So yeah,
It must have been good then if you think there was licenses like the Turtles game and stuff.
Yeah,
That's
And
true.
it outsold them.
True that.
That's-
It's absolutely. So plaudits there. Side-scrolling shooter. Have we heard of Grisor?
Oh,
It rings a bell. It does ring
That's
a
another
bell.
name for something, isn't it? Isn't it? Or
Yes,
is it,
no, it is. It is, and it kind of isn't, and I'll
what
explain.
else is it? No.
So Grisor was from 1987, or Grisor, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It was actually a port of Konami's Contra
there you go.
onto the 464, and it was
That's
coded specifically for the 464. So they did extra. I can't, and again, I'm sure someone will correct me on
We've
this on the
interviewed
socials.
someone who did that.
We did.
Grisor.
Some gentleman named, I can't remember.
Gentleman named, very esteemed guest of Arcade Attack. It was a text interview, so...
Sorry, text interview.
We forget.
Individual. Sorry about that.
We're old. We can't remember.
Someone mentioned Grisor.
But I'm going to get. I'm probably going to get picked up on this, but I believe, from what I can find out, that it was a port of Contra, but it was coded for the 464.
Yeah.
So I
want to
think
say it was Mark Jones.
I
but
think
don't
they
quote me on
had
that.
to call it something different.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe so. I don't know if you want to correct me on that. Feel free to do so. Yeah. Now this is although it wasn't the highest selling, this is one of the most like revered games for the 464 because it was. If you look it up, it looks amazing. Yeah, the graphics are absolutely stunning for an 8-bit. Yeah, it had an extremely responsive control system, really tight. Very intuitive, and essentially it had the right balance of kind of graphics, sound, and gameplay, which we all know when you put that in the mixing bowl with the right amounts, you get a winner. Yeah, you looking it up?
I'm waiting, ready to type it into Google. Go on.
Grisor. So, but yeah, loads of depth as well, loads of enemies, locations, lots of different weapon upgrades, so that it had good depth to the game as well. And it really showcased what the 464 could achieve if it was pushed in the right direction. Because a lot of people had just kind of done, arcade port hand-me-downs. This was with a specific bit of coding for this game, and man, it shows. Yeah, absolutely. For an
It was Mark Jones.
Well done.
well done, Dill.
I just googled Grisor Arcade Attack and it was Mark Jones. Sorry, Mark, but I don't know. It just rang a bell, but it was so long ago that we
Googled
interviewed
yourself. You Googled Arcade Attack.
I googled Arcade Attack. That's a bit of a hit for us.
I believe it used the same graphics engine that was used for Renegade.
Looks
I
nice. Looks nice.
Yeah, man.
Colourful.
Yeah, man.
I
Looks
approve.
nice,
I
looks
approve,
nice.
yes.
Reminder
Zero
for
one.
you.
Yeah. And again,
Very
another
nice.
one of those titles that you think there's no way the Amstrad's going to be able to play that. And it just does. So, and what it could achieve, 8-bit home computer, and it was, that sits top of the tree for or almost at the top of the tree for, love, basically. So many people love it out there.
Yeah.
Any platformers you can think of? Any classic
Turtles.
PC platformers? Turtles, yes. Come on, there's a big franchise. Think about something that was fun, sort of
Dizzy.
Yes,
Gotta be Dizzy.
Oh, okay.
He's got it.
There you go.
He's got it.
We did mention the Oliver Twins earlier.
Yeah,
that's
we
right,
can't overlook a Dizzy game. Yeah, I've chosen my personal favourite, Fantasy World Dizzy,
yeah.
from 1984. I mean, I must have literally run that cassette until it's almost snapped. I mean, I played that game
Until
so
it
much.
cracks.
It was. Do you know what? And I still remember it now. Yeah, it wasn't. It was fun. It was colourful, but it was a bit kind of like, I don't know. It was a bit unnerving in places because it was like a bit like sinister, wasn't it? There were certain people or monsters and locations.
It's
and
not just it's got a bit of puzzly elements to it.
Yes,
You've got
it
to
has.
solve
Yeah,
things. And
that's
it's not a walk in the park. It's not A to B.
No,
you have
it's
to go
quite
back
difficult.
Yourself.
Yeah.
It's the Dizzy games are very well constructed. So fair play to the Oliver Twins. It wasn't just go right. You had to go back and
You
forth.
have to
and up
collect
different-
things, don't you?
Collect
Yeah.
things and go back. And I kind of agree with what you're saying. It's kind of dark in some areas.
Absolutely.
Surprisingly.
I mean, like the first screen, for example, I'll give you an idea. You're in like a little dungeon and you've just got this platform you're standing on and there's a rat and he's in the way of you going up a ladder, right? So you have to get the little hunk of bread that's on the side of you, put the hunk of bread down, the rat comes along and eats it and gets out the way and you can jump him and then go up the ladder.
Nice.
And that's your first kind of, introduction into the game. I mean, wacky, colourful and hard. Very much so. I'd also kind of ask around mates and stuff at the time, but I don't think anybody had the platform, so I was a bit stuck. But yeah, I loved that game so much. For a racer, any racers? Any racing games?
Not Outrun.
No, not
Haven't
Outrun.
seen it.
not Outrun, which look good in a still. That's about it. Any racing games? Any classic PC racing or any arcade racing games? I've gone for Chase HQ.
Oh, yeah.
From 1989, so a bit of a later towards the kind of curtain call for the 464. Only purely because of its pace and the fact that it kind of made you sweat every time you got close to the bad guy. But the 464 conversion is considered another real gem of the platform. There's so many platforms you can play it on, but it's considered a
Actually,
really...
I think, going back to you saying about that retro game, I remember reading a retro game article about Chase HQ and they covered all the ports.
Yeah.
And I think I remember that, them mentioning that it was one of the best, if not probably the best 8-bit port of it at the time.
But had you not been reading that, the thing is, would you have known
never.
about it?
No, of course not.
Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those weird kind of... Nobody really knows about it. You know, there were some great releases and some good ports, but people only really remember the 464 as kind of the third wheel on the wagon. Like, do you know what I mean? As kind of the odd one out. You know, the third one at a kind of 2-person dinner party. But there you go. It did a bit more than that. So finally, I've gone for one of my all-time favourite 464 games, which is called Barbarian.
Oh,
Hey, Barbarian.
I posted this one on social a couple of times. It always gets the love. People just go, yes, I remember this. It was also known...
Isn't this the one with... Are you going to say
Yeah, I'm going to say it.
Go on.
I know what you're going to say, and I'll come to it. But it's also known as Death Sword.
Okay, I didn't know you want to say that. But yeah.
It was a one-on-one fighting game, pretty straightforward
good.
in terms of the setup. Yeah, you had to beat your opponent by scoring hits on them with your sword, of course, which did different levels of damage. All right, depending on the body part and so on and so forth. So it did draw some criticism.
Yes.
Though
you could do a certain move on someone.
tell us, Adrian, what move or Keith, do you know what this is?
I don't know, maybe. Go let Adrian.
Okay,
Adrian obviously definitely
and then you
knows,
can tell us whether
You can slice off someone's head.
You can. There's no easy way to say it. Was that what you were going to say? Yeah. So, and everyone remembers that move, don't they?
And the head bobbles along.
This is it. This is it. So it did draw some criticism at the time. And to be fair, rightly so, because nobody had seen that kind of thing before.
It's called Barbarian, guys.
It is, but kids playing the games, you know. It had a special move, which some people saw as maybe a bit over the top. And either yourself or your computer-controlled opponent, could perform a spinning chop with their sword, where they would literally jump up, thrash the sword around, and if you landed the hit, it would decapitate your foe with one hit.
Sweet.
And to add insult to injury, there was a little green goblin guy.
Yes, of course.
And he used to walk across the screen to this bit of music, and it would go dun 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 like that. And he would walk across, and he'd boot the head off the screen. And he literally kicked this severed head off the screen.
That's wicked.
I'm glad the
pretty brutal.
Yeah, I'm glad the guys at Golden Axe got a job. You know, little goblin guys. He still,
the ones that you steal the potions from. Yeah.
It was like when I first saw that, I was like, cool.
I know, right? Yeah.
And I'm not being funny. Anyone that played it at the time probably just constantly went for that headshot move.
I played that a lot on the Spectrum, but I appreciate it was on the CPC.
Honestly, I absolutely love that game.
I'm just Googling it to
The
see
other
if
thing
we're the
about
only one who
Barbarian, I
works
don't
on
know
it.
if it was the Amstrad version, but the cover wasn't Wolf from Gladiators on the cover.
Yeah, with a scanty
Yes.
clad
Yeah,
lady.
with the page figure.
Correct. Yeah, the cover's pretty easy to find, actually.
Yeah.
Just type it in on
It's on Dylan's bedroom wall.
He's a big fan of Wolf. from Gladiators.
I love Wolf.
People should have seen that coming because not page 3. In the first Conan the Barbarian, I'm sure he decapitates Tulsa Doom at the end, and that's how Conan
Deserved?
saves the day.
Deserved
It is
death?
deserved.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's how he saves the day. So they should have seen that decapitation coming in a game called Barbarian.
I mean,
We can't not mention Barbarian and not mention Roger Dean, legendary retro gaming legend. He did that cover illustration. He did that.
Okay.
He did that, but he's recently passed away.
Yeah.
So rest in peace, Roger. But yeah, absolute legend. Yeah, he was involved in that. I don't
It's a great bit of
recognize.
cover art. It's fantastic. So.
I don't recognize the name. David Lawson programmed it. No, I've not come across him in our circles. Garvin Corbett did the graphics. Ian Hetherington sounds that's ringing a bell somewhere. So he did the coding of the end sequence. But that's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's another one of those games, though, that the first couple of, I think it's 8 opponents in, and then you fight, the boss guy, who's the main kind of, owner of the temple, whatever it is you're in. But it gets really, really difficult. And it kind of, you have to time your moves, block properly, and all that sort of thing. So it's not just a hack and slash type thing.
Yeah.
You actually have to kind of have a bit of savvy about this. I've got some other honourable mentions, and guys, you know, if you want to throw anything in that rings a bell, please feel free to do so. But I've got one of my other favourites, Yaya Kung Fu. Remember that one? Nobody remembers Yaya Kung Fu?
I have played.
If you've seen it, you'll probably know it. Karate game, you could choose from all sorts of different characters. Great big sort of tubby guy. There was a Bruce Lee type guy. There was a guy with nunchucks.
I think I have played
Sounds
it.
cool.
There was a guy with a like a Donatello type like baton.
stuff.
I have played it. I know. Yeah, I played that as well.
Yeah, that was on a number of platforms as well. Renegade, we all know what Renegade is. Dan Dare. So Dan Dare was
Dan Dare was an old comic. Yeah.
Managed to get that running. That was really cool, like a space adventure type thing.
Nice.
There was a game called Chronos, which was like an early R-Type. So it was very gold, and you had like what looked like a Millennium Falcon ship, and it was a shooter.
Nice.
It was a good little game, really good looking as well. There was a game called Rescue on Fractalus. Again, I'm coming out with things here you probably don't have no clue on. It was you piloted a ship and you had to save fellow pilots who had crashed within mountains and hills, but without them getting attacked by aliens and things.
Oh, like a spacey version of Choplifter.
Yeah. But it was you were in the cockpit. So
okay.
Yeah. But it was that was great. There was a game called Night Law, which was a sort of a platformer puzzle game where you had the screen was one room and you had to kind of push blocks and that sort of thing. Ghostbusters, we know about that. And there was a game called Rick Dangerous.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I could go on for ages about it, but there was what ones did you borrow again? Was it you said Turtles?
Yeah, I just remember really
Street
Turtles and
Fighter
Street Fighter.
Yeah.
But there was some others. I can't remember them very well because it kind of blurs with Spectrum games I was playing at the time. But they're the two that jumped out at me.
They're probably loads of crossovers. Yeah. But I mean, there was some really good sports games. There was some like boat racing games, stuff like that. But I mean, I could go on for ages. But
Correction, Roger Dean hasn't died. I'm thinking of someone else.
Oh.
So, sorry, Roger. I killed you earlier.
Who was it? No, someone did
was
recently.
someone.
I know Ollie Frey died a few months ago, but
I'm
I
pretty
don't know
sure someone
who it
did
was
say that he
recently.
died, but apparently he hasn't died.
Oh.
Is that hearsay?
Has he come out to
Someone
sort of-
please tell
I'm
us if
still
he's
alive.
alive.
Oh, not this trend again.
Please tell us if he's alive. Anyway.
Make
carry
yourself known. So, I mean, we've covered the release of the 464, some of the stacks of games. I mean, we could just go on forever there, yeah? But we'd be kind of like retreading old ports that we've talked about, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought with those ones that I mentioned that maybe catch you out a little bit, mention ones you've not heard of. Take a look at them, though, because they are quite impressive. So it's worth taking a look at how did it go sales-wise, yeah, and what kind of came next. So, get your hats on, yeah, plug yourselves in. Does anyone want to hazard a guess at total, I mean, don't go, crazy, but total sales numbers for the 464, not for the Amstrad series, just for the 464 in the UK.
Oh, in the UK.
I want to say 500,000.
Okay, 500,000. 500,000 Adrian's gone for.
400,000.
600.
Dylan's gone for 400,000.
600,000.
Keith's gone for 600,000. Again, you're not close. 2 million.
Wow.
The CPC 464 managed to shift 2 million units in the UK, with the number being reported as high as 3 million across Europe, if you include the European sales as well. Wow. It was particularly popular in France and Spain, as we said about the TV tune, etc., and the expansion and whatnot. There was also a 3-inch floppy disk drive you could add as well after the cassette one, and that became quite a good standard. That floppy disk drive actually was used on a lot of different PCs then as well.
Do you know how that compares, not to put you on the spot, how that compares to like the C64 in sales?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I didn't actually get the numbers for it.
I'm just interested to know how it compares.
But I mean, I'm not being funny, for a company who, previous to that model, weren't in the PC market, not a bad debut. I mean, there's a lot to be, yes, they had the wind in their sails from the audio equipment. Yes, they were sort of a household name up and coming at the time. But, I think there was a lot to be said for the first people that bought the PC then said to other people, do you know what? This is actually pretty good. Pretty good. It's not just a load of rubbish. And it can play some decent games. It can do word processing, So the jockeying for position, as it were, between Amstrad, Sinclair and Commodore, it took a very interesting turn in April of 86, because Amstrad just decided, old Shuggy decided, that he was going to buy the worldwide rights to sell and manufacture any current and future Sinclair computers and products. including the brand name and all. All right. Now that included, of course, the ZX Spectrum. All right. Now for that whole kind of package, they paid $5 million for that whole package. Now this was the canniest move of all. All right, because the best part for Amstrad was that Sinclair still housed quite a large stock of the ZX Spectrums and Sinclair QLs. All right. Amstrad promptly sold all of those units and actually managed to, on those units alone, without producing anything further, made their $5 million back.
Wow.
So they sold the stock that was already sitting in the warehouse, cleared it out, made the $5 million, and therefore anything after that was to be made, which they did make, they made further Sinclair products and Amstrad. Wow. They then, so essentially they got it for nothing. They bought the stock, they bought the whole company in the stock, sold the stock, made the money.
Yeah, but just to sort of burst the bubble a little bit, Sinclair wasn't really a big brand soon after this, so it couldn't have gone that well.
No, but they did make further machines, which I'll come on to in a minute, which again sold. So, even if you make a penny profit, you've still made a profit. There's no loss there at all.
Fair enough.
But okay,
Roger Keane.
Is that with the eyebrow movement?
Sorry, the Keane family and Roger Keane. Sorry, sir. Rest in peace, sir. Crash. Zap.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Where were we? Blah, blah, blah. Things got kind of bigger and bigger for Amstrad. After that, they went on to make other things. I'll quickly touch on that because obviously we were only talking about the 464, but they made another variant called the 6128. There's actually a really funny TV ad for that, where there's a guy playing a Formula One game or a racing game or something at work, and his boss comes in and he's like he thinks he's gonna have a go at him, and then he doesn't. He's like, "Oh, I love that game!" And yeah, it's really weird. Your boss would kind of kill you if you were playing Formula One at work. They went on to create other versions of the Sinclair as well. They went on also to create portable PCs, and they even created a games console. Did you know that?
Oh, the Amstrad. Yeah, the G.
I always fancied getting one.
GS.
Not X. Yes.
400.
Oh,
4,000.
Yes. The GX 4000.
I had a friend who had this years and years ago. Someone who lived on the estate I grew up on.
Didn't it have like Afterburner and stuff?
It had a. I'm sure it had a Terminator game on it.
Nice.
And there was a racing game on it. It was quite good. And Switchblade.
Ooh,
you heard of Switchblade?
I've heard of Switchblade.
Switchblade. It was on it. It's a platform game.
Right, no.
But now, like the games are because it didn't sell many. I don't know if you're going to say much about it. It didn't sell many at the time. They're really quite sought after, and there's only a small library. But the games are really expensive.
Yeah,
I did look at it at one point, and I was like,
that'd be pretty cool.
Way too expensive.
What does the console look like? How would you?
Oh, it's like
a white kind of.
It's a white beigey thing, but it's kind of curved. It kind of looks like a little spaceship.
Oh right, yeah.
It's.
Those look really good in
catalogs. I'll find a picture of it.
They did look good in catalogs.
Yeah,
yeah, but no one else has
one.
I do
remember it because
Well, the idea of it was really good.
What bit was it? 16-bit.
There was a bit of a problem.
It was 4-bit.
No,
that was the problem.
It was 3.5-bit. What?
7.65 bit. Yeah. The biggest kind of issue with it was that the games library was essentially just ripping off games that had already been released for the 464. There wasn't really, as far as I'm aware.
It was quite cool looking. I quite liked it.
Yeah, no,
it's quite clean, doesn't it? Yeah.
I like it. No,
so if you're listening, look up GX 4000 Amstrad, and you can have a look. It looks quite kind of 2001 Space Odyssey, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. Yeah, like
it.
Buck Rogers kind of console. Yeah. But have a look at it. But the biggest kind of issue was that they used games that were kind of already out. I don't think there was any new injection of life into the games library. So there might have been a couple. If anybody knows of any standalone games,
fair dues.
Let me know. Let us know.
Yeah,
but
so you can pick up the consoles quite reasonably, but then the game. So if you want a copy of Amstrad GX 4000 World of Sport, £50. Batman for the Amstrad GX 4000, £100. Switchblade Amstrad GX 4000, £200.
Wait, so your friend is
now
pretty
millionaire
minted now.
Panzer Kickboxing GX 4000, £500.
Wow.
So if anyone did buy one back then and bought a few games and they've got it in the loft.
Yeah.
Mate,
Time to dust
dig
it
it
off
out.
and take some pictures.
time to go on holiday.
Yeah, man.
Well, that's only going to go up, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to get anything. You're not going to get your hands on any of that, are you?
No way.
So there we go. GX 4000 console that they made, but slipped up on the library. So they kind of sealed its own fate, really. But it's at this point I kind of wanted to point out something that I don't think we've really seen or heard of with any other computer or games console, and it's a bit weird. Is the amount of different nicknames the 464 actually received from various people, publications, etc., etc.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's the odd kind of name here and there for other consoles.
Yeah, also you had the Speccy.
Yeah, exactly. It was like
the
a
Jag.
But I mean, the Jag.
The Jagsy.
The C6, the Commodore 64 was just C64, wasn't it? It was just
C64,
an
but
abbreviation,
they're all
but it
kind of
wasn't a
shortenings.
nickname.
And,
not nicknames.
So old Sugar himself decided to call the 464 Arnold during creation.
Arnie.
I can't find out why. Yeah, so he called it Arnold. Bless him. Upon release, the Guardian called it Amstradivarius.
Stradivarius.
Nice.
Obviously, the Guardian. Personal Computer World magazine called it the Sinclair Beta.
PC.
And the Computer News called it Arthur. Again, we don't know why.
Just call it Amsty. Or
Check this one out. The Grimsby Evening Telegraph.
Yes.
Labelled it as the Mean Machine.
Or Simon Amstrad.
Simon Amstrad.
Dear God.
I've met Simon Amstrad, actually. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, he knows.
Keeps like, don't. We've been there.
You embarrassed yourself enough on that day. We don't want to hear it again.
Oh no! The London Evening Standard loved it so much, it went as far as naming it after the VW Beetle, calling it the People's Computer, which I think,
I'm going to quickly let the people's computer now. Oh.
Yeah, there we go.
You know.
So take a breath and soak that lot up. But I mean, is there any other weird pet names for PCs or consoles? I mean, as we've said, there's shortenings, but I don't think anything's had quite that many names, is it?
Every mum in the 90s called their console a Nintendo.
A Nintendo, yeah.
No, I'm playing PlayStation 5.
Nintendo. Get off that Nintendo.
Yeah.
I'm gonna confiscate your Nintendo. You're right, actually. Yeah, you're right. But we know now the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. Some people will say it's not good. I'm going to get bashed, I know, for saying that the 464 was good, but I loved it, yeah. And there's going to be so many people out there that are going to be like showcasing the Speccy and all that sort of stuff. And I know that argument's incoming, but I absolutely loved it. But 1990 was like the curtain call pretty much, and they stopped making the CPC 464 to make way actually for new 464 models, the 464 Plus. They did a Spectrum, I think Plus 2. Which was increased functionality, different attachments, processor, all the usual stuff you'd expect with PC upgrades. But the multi-million selling debut unit from Amstrad that gave, other PC companies a bit of a headache, to be fair, had kind of come to an end. That was kind of the end of the roads. But it had a 6-year window. 6-year
bad.
window. Which is not
Decent.
bad. That's
Better than the Jag.
what was that? 6 months, wasn't it?
Better than
Dreamcast.
better than some Sega consoles, yes.
Ooh. I mean, 6 years ain't bad. I mean, even for kind of the decent PC/consoles, certainly for PCs wise, they were PC companies. Certainly in the 90s, were churning stuff out every few months.
They
weren't
were. Yeah, they were.
I think it was the same back in the 80s, but I don't think as much stuck because in the 90s you had ridiculous amount of choice, didn't you, of PC brands? So. It kind of always played, third fiddle in the arcade port stakes, and we've talked about some good games that came out on it. I love the fact that Keith's amazed at Turtles and Gryzor and stuff
that's
like
great.
that. I love
They look
that.
great.
Well,
Yeah,
look
they
at
do.
Gryzor, the colours. It's more colourful than the NES Contra.
I have a question for you, James.
Go for it.
Question.
I may or may not be able to answer it.
Do I have your permission to call this episode better than the Speccy and the C64?
Yeah, because because it's my episode.
Yeah, but people are going to get angry at that.
Yeah.
And they'll blame you, not
Yeah,
Dylan.
but listen, I'm not being funny.
You know
Over the
where
last-
those people can go, don't you?
Get in the bin!
Listen, over the last few weeks, we've had a fair bit of controversy. Let's just add to it.
We're going to a place of glory, aren't we?
Yes.
I'm walking in the
going
room
out.
with a tin of petrol and some matches, and I'm going for it. But yeah,
Torch it all!
Burn it all down.
It's like that quote in, is it, some people just like to watch the world burn?
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
We want to watch Spectrums and C64s burn.
Well, do you know what? I've heard about it mentioned, or those two mentioned so many times. And I was like, listen, I need something to kind of like stick it to them. And it did. It did stick it to
It
them.
really did. I think it's way better than both of them. I even
It's at this point, we don't know if he's joking or not.
At the start of the episode, he said he had 1 or 2 out of 10 knowing about this console. Now he says it's the best thing ever.
It's the best, literally the
But
best.
it's the best within that one.
Yeah.
The knowledge that he
dear,
has.
mate.
Yeah. Oh my god. So where are we there? So as we said, but it always played back in the day. It always played the third fiddle, not even the second fiddle. Yeah. There's still a lot of love around for the 464, and it was decent enough to sell 2 million units in the UK.
Yeah,
so
impressive.
you know the numbers speak for itself. And as I say, go and have a look if you want to go away and have a quick Google search on some of the graphics, the games, or whatever. There's loads of stuff out there. Like I mentioned Retro Gamer again, purely because they've done a few pieces on this and actually done a full review and a thing of the 464. Go and check that out because that's really good, and they've done some really good screen grabs and stuff.
There's I mean, it was easy for me. There's loads of long plays on YouTube.
Yeah.
And for anyone like me who's never really seen games running on it, I think they'd be
There's
impressed.
quite a lot actually.
I think they'd be impressed.
Yeah.
Just remember the volume controls. That's the important thing.
Get that game loaded with the volume control. Yeah. So, what can you get one for today? Well, we know the
£464.
the GX4000. The GX4000 is excluded from this because I'm only talking about the 464. Yeah, because we've talked about that, which is kind of a bit outside of most people's purchasing power. You can actually get. I've had a look around and there's some average prices here. You can bag yourself the base unit with cassette deck and the green monitor for about 120 to 150.
Decent.
Yeah, not bad. And there's a lot of them that look in decent nick as well. Yeah, I assume because people used them for a bit of word processing and whatever, then stored them. About £200 will bag you one with the colour monitor. Yeah. Okay. And there's around about 200, 220-ish if you want the TV tuner and stuff like that. I think people just like throwing it in maybe because without the monitor and the deck, it's useless. So people aren't selling them separately. I mean, there might be some people selling them for parts, but whatever. But it's not a bad little investment if you want one of those classic PCs and you can't kind of get your hands on maybe a Speccy or a C64. But I know the C64 had the like for like relaunch, didn't they? The model there with some bits and pieces on it, and they had the operating system and all that jazz. What do you mean? I got one of them. It's all right. I like it. But I don't like it as much as Amstrad. But I did see there was a bit of talk online about an Amstrad Mini.
Do it.
So
someone just do it.
Hey,
just do it.
I mean, I'm not being funny. If you stuck some of those games on we talked about, your Greiser, your Guild of Thieves, and all that jazz. There's people out there that played them originally.
Yeah.
You'd have some buyers. Yeah. I mean, I love mine because you could do so much on it, and the fact that it had loads of little quirks like the volume control, that sort of thing. And it had a bit of personality. Yeah, it really did. It did. And because it was my very first kind of introduction to kind of any kind of entertainment computing game system, that's why I got so much love for it. So, sure, there's loads of people out there that kind of turn their nose up at it, and I've seen some awful reviews. That
I'll tag Dave Kumar into this episode.
Definitely.
Say, Dave, what are your... And then we can, maybe I'll come back in a future episodes.
Definitely.
See what Dave thinks about it all.
Get him to record a little soundbite or something about him lending you the machine.
He really enjoyed the GoldenEye episode, so we'll see.
Sweet. Well, he might be able to tell us what the third game was that he lent you.
Well, he'll probably be saying, You're probably saying it wasn't a 464, you idiot. It was Outrun. It was a C64, you fool.
God damn it. Make us all look like mugs.
Never contact me again.
Forever.
How dare you suggest that I own one of those things? But yeah, I mean, it had some really crappy ports, but it had some really good ones. And, I think it's a mixed bag of reviews out there. But, the numbers speak for themselves and I loved it. And I know there's a lot of fans out there. So, I mean, I do know for a fact as well, there's actually a few Instagram accounts dedicated to the 464.
Why not?
And there's a couple of really good ones and they do some, they show some of the games and they have like little playthroughs and snippets and stuff like that. It's really good. It's really good because it kind of shows what could be done on it. So, I guess what I'm really saying is I don't care what the haters think.
Haters are going to
going in the bin. Yeah. Haters are going in the bin. I loved it. So, is there anything you guys love that people love to hate? I mean, is there anything along those lines that those things there as far as consoles, PCs, as a closing?
Adrian loves
line?
the Jag.
The Jag's an interest.
Of course,
I do
the
like
Jag
the
will
Jag.
always be a.
It's a bit of a love. I've got a love relationship with it. No hate for it.
Yeah, you love it. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah. So today I've also that's probably the most controversial thing I love actually. Yeah. The
We know
Jaguar.
about Adrian's Jag.
Double Dragon 3. That's not a console. Can you imagine?
No.
He had to say it, didn't he?
Dragon 3.
The Double Dragon 32.
Oh no. Oh God.
But there we go. I mean, we've all got things I've no doubt that we like that, in terms of consoles and games that other people don't. But look, that's what makes it so beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so many out there and we can all enjoy what we like. And that's one of the things I like. So if you want to have a go at me, get me on the socials and tell me what an idiot I am for loving the 464. I don't care.
At least you didn't accidentally kill off Roger Dean, let's be honest.
No, well, you did.
I did it. I've done it. I've done him and disrespected Roger Keane in the same episode.
There you are.
Good
job.
I think we are definitely going our blaze of glory.
We're just going to kind of apologise to everybody.
Everyone's getting some.
Whether you're dead or alive.
You almost turned into like John Fashanu from Gladiators there.
Hey, that's full circle with the wolf now, to be fair.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So there you go.
I don't even realise I did that.
There you go.
So that's it. That's a wrap from me. I hope you've enjoyed the little jog through the CPC 464 days. And until next time, ladies and gents, adios.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can tweet us at Arcade Attack UK. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcade Attack UK. Check out our website at arcadeattack.co.uk for lots more retro gaming goodness and to delve into our archives. Our podcasts are also available on Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Please leave us a review and a rating, we'd really appreciate it. If you'd like to support Arcade Attack, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/arcadeattack, which will give you access to exclusive podcasts, interviews and other bonus content. So, until next time, take care and we'll speak to you soon.